Hello, my name is Mary, a woman in my 30s. I'm married with one child. My husband is younger than me and the eldest son in his family. He has a much younger brother. My husband Tom and his brother Jim have a significant age gap. Since I'm older than my husband, I didn't interact much with Jim, who was much younger. Jim and his wife Linda had a shotgun wedding and got married before us, but they never had a ceremony. I hardly ever speak to Linda, who is 12 years younger than me. I never imagined that Jim and Linda would cause such an uproar. One Friday afternoon, out of the blue, I got a call from my mother-in-law Kate about Jim's wedding this weekend. "What time is your dress appointment? The venue's parking isn't very spacious, so if your appointment is close to ours, why not come with us?" That was the moment I found out Jim was having a wedding ceremony. It was the biggest surprise of my life. I explained the situation to Kate, and she was just as shocked. "I'll get in touch with Jim and call you back." I messaged Tom, but he was busy and took a while to respond. I thought if I wasn't originally invited, it would be sad, but I'd understand. However, if I was expected to attend, I couldn't relax, as I needed to go to my parents' house to pick up my dress. An hour later, Tom replied, equally surprised. He said he'd contact Jim and Kate. I was confused about preparing a cash gift as well. "What about the cash gift?" I asked Tom, and this was his response. "When Jim got married, I already gave them $1,000. And when I told Linda to let us know if they needed anything, she said they wanted a fridge, which we bought. So do we need to give another cash gift now?" His question left me puzzled. An hour later, Kate called again. "The reception is this Sunday. It's just one train stop from you and Tom's place. Linda wanted to save on postage for the invitation, so she tried to deliver it by bike. But with 4 kids, she couldn't manage it, and it got left undone." When I confronted Jim, he said it was Linda's idea to have the ceremony, and he left all the planning to her. "So, he didn't think you didn't know about it?" I could hear the astonishment in Kate's voice. If it weren't for her call, we would have missed the ceremony. I had met Linda at Jim's place a month ago when I delivered a gift. Since she couldn't visit her parents, I wish she had mentioned the ceremony and the invitation then. It left me feeling a bit frustrated. Jim called Tom directly to apologize, but we didn't hear anything from Linda. I couldn't help but want to ask if they really wanted us, Tom and I, to come. In any case, I had to get my dress, so I called my mom, only to find out that she had left the dress with her sister-in-law years ago because it was too much trouble to keep. I was told to contact them if I needed to pick up the dress, but it turned into such a hassle that I was left holding my head in my hands. When I discussed the cash gift with Kate, she mentioned Ben's idea. Since we helped them with their car inspection fee last year, that could be the gift. But still, it feels awkward to go to the reception empty-handed, doesn't it? That's when, a bit of mischief in mind, I made this suggestion. "How about including a note with a cash gift explaining..." Laughter. Kate laughed and agreed, so we decided to go with that plan. While I was writing the note, Ben called. "Thanks for the idea earlier. Since Tom and his family seem to rely on our support, here's what I've decided to write on the note. The vehicle inspection cost $2,500. We'll consider $1,500 as the cash gift, so you just need to repay the remaining $1,000. It was unusual to lose money instead of gaining from a cash gift, which made me laugh. Kate didn't seem to mind, but Ben planned to confront after the reception, suggesting that if they could afford a reception, they should repay the remaining $1,000 in full. Tom, unhappy with the whole situation, decided not to attend. After Jim's call, he mentioned neither being asked for a suitable date nor formally invited. It could have been because I was 3 months postpartum at the time and not going out much. Late at night, I received a message from Linda. "Sorry about the invitation. I thought Kate might have told you. Do you need a reservation for your dress? It's around $180. She seemed unaware that we hadn't talked to Jim and didn't know we were not attending. So, I replied, "I don't have a dress at home, so it's impossible to prepare in one day. And we really can't attend. Tom has already informed Jim." Shortly after I received a reply, I heard from Tom. "Since he can't be persuaded, I'm asking you, Mary, if you don't show up, there might be a cancellation fee. I'll check tomorrow. Anyway, you need to decide about the dress appointment tomorrow morning. Hair and makeup will be an additional $100. I'm going to be blunt. Inviting us to a reception just 2 days in advance is unreasonable. You have an infant too. So you should understand the difficulty. Right after showing Tom the exchanges with Linda, he was furious and called Jim. The venue is new, and we want it as a free monitor, so there's no cancellation fee. If it's free, did you make sure to tell the guests they don't need to give cash gifts? I told my friends. Anyway, you're also at fault for leaving everything to Linda. We attended the wedding party when you registered your marriage, so we won't be coming this Sunday. If you don't like empty seats, invite someone else for a free meal. Feeling relieved after this, another message from Linda arrived. The ceremony itself is free, but I upgraded the dress because it was too simple, and we added drink refills and paid for wedding favors. I didn't know Tom told his friends not to bring cash gifts. This messes up my plan to offset the cost with cash gifts. If you're not coming, you should at least pay for the drinks and favors. As she cried, I retorted, "It's your fault for forgetting to invite us. Why should we pay a cancellation fee? But now that you know and still won't come, it's different." How is it different? Either way, it's your fault. As family, you should make an effort to attend. It's basic decency. Anyway, it's a sudden request for us as a couple, and what's impossible is just impossible. I'll talk to Kate about it. I was utterly astounded when the call was cut off with such a childish parting shot. In the morning, Tom called Kate to inform her of our absence, and she suggested we discuss it over lunch at her place. Regarding the additional cost Linda mentioned, Jim seemed unaware and furious. I was against having a reception in the first place. I agreed only because it was a free campaign. I didn't know about extra charges. If it costs money, I don't want it. We couldn't save money for the car inspection despite knowing the date, so Dad paid. It's wrong to have a reception without repaying that first. Jim had lost all enthusiasm for the reception upon arriving at the in-laws. Tom declared our decision not to go, and Ben agreed. It's rude not to send an invitation, even to family. You're right not to go. I understand, but it's a pity for Jim. Tom, if you don't have other plans, could you go? All of Jim's kids are boys, right? Babysitting is tough, so your help would be appreciated. Kate had a bit of a tendency to dote on Jim, who had been fond of her since he was little. As for Linda's parents, her mother had broken her leg and couldn't help, while her father refused to babysit, saying they decided to have the reception with their 4 children, so they should handle it themselves. Tom suggested, if Linda's parents aren't helping, we shouldn't either. Mom is too lenient with Jim. Linda thinks she can get away with anything because of it. Ben agreed, but it's tough with 4 kids. Jim's shotgun wedding was his own doing. The lack of planning is evident, even with unexpected twins. Better planning would have prevented this babysitting issue. It's a result of poor organization, so you should skip it. Thanks to Ben, the matter was settled, and Tom called Jim to confirm our absence. Jim promised to talk to Linda. However, even after Jim's explanation, Linda called, still not convinced. The reception is free, but we need to follow the venue's gift count. It's important for Tom to attend as the eldest. You don't need to bring a cash gift, but we need you to cover the meal and favors. It's already tomorrow, Tom. You can't just cancel last minute. The lack of invitation was your responsibility. Consider it a lesson and handle it yourself. I'll talk to Kate about it. I won't change my mind no matter what Mom says. You know that, right? The call ended, but on the morning of the reception, Linda called Tom again. Sensing it was about the reception and considering the early hour, Tom decided to answer, thinking there might be an important reason. It turned out Linda's friend had canceled, and she was asking if Tom could invite a childhood friend who lived behind his parents' house. New Jim, I can explain the situation and invite them, but it's unreasonable to expect me to contact someone whose details I don't even know. Linda, sounding irritated, raised her voice. That's why I'm asking you, Tom. Tom, usually not the one to get angry, was visibly upset. If someone cancels at the last minute, it's probably due to illness or a more urgent matter. It's not necessary just to fill the numbers. After Tom's sarcastic remark, Linda stumbled over her words and fell silent. Apparently, she hadn't sent invitations to local friends either, trying to save on postage. I don't know when the reception starts, but you must be busy preparing to leave the house, so I'll hang up. Despite being a man not easily swayed by emotions, Tom received no more calls from Kate urging attendance. I received a message from Kate with a photo attached from inside the chapel, indicating that the reception had started. Kate is someone who enjoys chatting and often sends casual conversation messages unintentionally. I ended up learning about the state of the reception. The ceremony in the chapel, starting at 11 a.m., was open to all, with the reception following at 12 p.m. At the chapel ceremony, only the parents from both families, Linda's relatives, and 3 of Jim's friends were present. Kate was worried whether anyone would actually show up for the reception. There were only 2 tables on the groom's side, and Kate felt sorry for Jim. Linda's mother, who had fractured her leg, was in casual clothes, which led Linda's father to wear a regular suit. Can you believe it? Linda's relatives are all in regular dresses. No one even has their hair done. It's usually the bride's friends who attend the chapel ceremony. Who will catch the bouquet? They didn't forget to send invitations like us, did they? Ben looks upset, sitting there expressionless and silent. It looks like it's going to be a quiet meal. The reception moved to the main venue, where Jim's side had only 2 tables filled by 3 friends and the in-laws. It seems our family was supposed to make up the 3rd table. And then we sat down. There were 2 kids' chairs between Ben and me, and 2 baby beds on the other side. Looks like we were expected to watch the kids. Ben's about to lose it, and the bride's side friends. It's only your family with 3 kids, and 1 table is empty. They're late. Eventually, Ben managed to get Linda's parents to help with the babysitting. 2, carrying large bags, sat down at Linda's empty table, giving Kate some relief. I thought it was props for a performance, but I guess it got canceled due to time constraints. When Kate mentioned this to Ben about Linda's friends' bags, Ben, still angry, commented, "That looks more like shopping bags from a bargain sale." Kate sent another message saying she'd become expressionless again. She later sent a photo she took with Jim, where she was smiling broadly while Jim looked expressionless. Kate, being rather obvious, seemed to think the reception went well. I got an email from Jim. He's coming to our house today. Why don't you and Tom join us for dinner? She seemed unaware of the potential for conflict. I showed Tom Kate's message, and he decided to go to his parents' house to talk with Jim and Linda, asking me to stay home. At 6 p.m., they gathered at the in-laws' house. I waited at home, but Tom filled me in later. The additional charges Linda incurred for the reception were because the wedding planner had assured her they could be offset with cash gifts. In reality, cash gifts had already been given at the time of their marriage registration. There were none from the relatives. Although Jim's friends were told they didn't need to bring any, they each brought $100. Linda's friends, thinking the reception was canceled because they didn't receive invitations, had made other plans. After being informed at the last minute, the only 2 of Linda's friends who attended thought they were stopping by after shopping. Having been asked to speak or consult, as a result, they only collected $600, not enough to cover the additional charges. They reportedly asked Ben if they could pay the $1,000 car inspection fee in installments. Linda, in tears, said the reception was a disaster and blamed herself. When Tom pressed for an explanation about the lack of invitations and phone calls, Jim gave this reason. "I didn't particularly want to do it myself, so I thought if I called Tom, it might seem like I was eager to." Linda said she would handle the invitations, so I left it to her. You totally abandoned something you decided to do as a couple. It's your fault for prioritizing your feelings and neglecting what needed to be done. The same goes for the car inspection payment. You left all the financial management to Linda, which led to this situation. Every month, she complained about being in the red, so when I took over the finances, it seemed too hard for her. She threatened to divorce me and went back to her parents' home. Even Linda's mom scolded me. Then Tom later said, Jim likes beautiful women and children, so he didn't want a divorce, but he regretted not allowing it, given this outcome. Linda is so beautiful that if there were 10 people, all 10 would say she's pretty. Having only 2 sons, Kate had longed for a daughter. She liked Jim, favored beauty, so she was very fond of Linda. Kate is essentially someone who can say no when asked for help, and always tries to act for the benefit of others. However, this tendency backfired, and I received a message from Kate, who was at home, asking for my help. Linda is being scolded by Ben for all the things I've done for her, and I'm getting scolded by Jim. What should I do? I'm in the bathroom, so please give me some good advice quickly. When I asked what exactly Kate had done, it turned out she was scolded for always cooking and delivering dinners to Jim because Linda often said Jim wanted to eat Kate's cooking. It seemed Linda is not good at cooking, and Kate's pampering was the reason she never improved. Kate then had to return to the discussion, and I received no further replies. According to what Tom told me, Kate was reprimanded by Jim with these words. "Didn't you think about teaching her instead of just giving her food? She was always happy with the same seasoning as yours." I thought it was unfair to blame Kate for being kind. It seemed like the indulgence was on their part, not Kate's. Ben seemed to feel the same, and the discussion concluded like this. "I think it's not bad that Kate likes to be relied upon and often takes on various tasks. It's better than pushing responsibilities onto others. However, it's different when family members exploit that. We don't want Kate's nature to be taken advantage of. Why didn't anyone think of teaching instead of just doing? That's something I should say, not you, the husband who let it happen." As a result of the discussion, Ben agreed to cover the additional cost of the reception. Tom was angry, calling it too lenient, but they concluded it was better for Ben to front the money and have Jim repay it on payday. It was decided that if Jim couldn't pay for the car inspection, Ben wouldn't lend him money again, and he would have to give up the car. Finally, when asked why they were continuously in the red, it was revealed that Linda had joined a mom's group. She had been dressing her kids in trendy brand clothes popular among the group, leading to considerable expenses. Some friends who didn't attend the reception were part of this group, leaving Linda quite disappointed. She decided to leave the group after this incident. Following this, Linda began to control her spending to some extent and tried not to rely too much on Kate. She also didn't demand cancellation fees from us, Tom, and me this time. Ben and Tom's intervention was a significant help, and I am encouraged to speak up more in the future.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.